And this is Brightly and her babies. She spread them out so she nurses half at a time. Looks like they've already nursed, it just fell off. I don't take many videos the first week just because they're really boring. They just eat, sleep. As they mature more and are moving around more and playing, then I take like loads and loads of videos. But I did want you to see, this is Brightly. This is her baby. She's a big girl. She's my biggest red. That's actually what I was hoping they would all turn out like over the years, but hard to get. And Brightly is also a very elegant poodle. She has her Canadian Kennel Club Championship, like American Kennel Club. This is the Canadian Kennel Club Championship. So she has that. She's only one of, oh goodness, maybe I've championed 19, so she's, oh, it only has, so eight reds. She's maybe, there's under 20 red CKC champions in the whole history of Canadian Kennel Club. So it's quite an accomplishment to have a red obtain a CKC championship. She's not a UKC champion yet. We're going to take her out next year. She just finished showing and then she was older, so I did a breeding. I like to make sure my mommies are going to want to be moms before I keep them for too long, because I want to produce the next generation. Each generation I try and perfect some trait. Belle's litter was an attempt to get more elegance and get size. And of course, along the way, keep the red dominant gene, which I've really accomplished here. Using Daddy's now crossbreeding, so I was really concerned the first litter, Belle, this was oops breeding. Belle was had a litter last year, and the first breeding that she had was an oops breeding as well. Like, definitely wanted to breed her, but not necessarily to Eddie. And Eddie was a baby who had no testicles, so we thought he'd be sterile, and then all of a sudden one testicle drop, and then 8 months. So these puppies are at Eddie. So 8 months later, Eddie's second testicle dropped, and the vets are all like, oh, he's going to be sterile, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, this is great, because I love this dog. But anyway, so Eddie saw Belle from across the yard as a baby and went running over, and they were just in love. And he tied her, and I thought, well, you know, he won't have any babies anyways, because, you know, he had 12 puppies. And then I was all excited because she's pregnant and he's breeding and great. Then they were born and they were all light red. And I'm like, oh, crap sakes. Like, I'm back to square one again with my program. And what was really funny was they got, I've heard breeders say this. I'm like, yeah, right. They were born decent enough, and then the 2 days later I look and they're really light, and I've never had this for like the last 10 years. I consistently have dark reds, and then I had this lighter reds in the litter. I'm like, what is going on? So I told everybody, I said, I'm sorry, it looks like they're going to be apricot. And then at 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks of age, right before they go home, boom, dark red again. I'm like, oh man. So my puppy people are laughing, going, all right, like, we got a deal. These aren't apricots at all. They're reds. And now they're sending me pictures. Been a year or so, and dark red puppies. Unbelievable, and with size. So it's quite lovely how the litter turned out. Unplanned by, well, I eventually planned for the breeding, but the dogs took it in their own hands and they produced beautifully. And sometimes you'll get that, like over the years when I've done different breeds, and that a pair will be attracted to each other despite your best efforts. You're like, no, you're going to breed to this male. And she's like, And you know, sometimes nature does know best. So this breeding again, Belle was out of heat, and Eddie was really depressed because, you know, it's his girlfriend. He wasn't with her and whatnot. And I thought, you know what, Belle, you're done your heat. You know, I'll put you back with Eddie and you can cheer him up. And I went outside and they're in a tie. I'm like, how did that happen? Like, she was a week out of heat. They were just determined to produce these two. So that's my story. Usually I don't share this with puppy people, but honestly, it was just amazing to me. Like new things that happen to me, I just have to share because it's kind of like, that's kind of cool. These two are like lifelong partners, I guess. But her next heat, I would like to take her to Mango. Mango's more refined. He's a very elegant boy, but still with size and boning. So I'd really like to try that breeding, if she'll let me. She's kind of made up her own mind, this dog. Eddie's my man. And what's funny is when they're together, she's like a total nag on him, eh? Like he goes to do something, she's like, why are you doing that? You should be paying attention to me. Like you just see them having this conversation while I'm sitting there having coffee and I'm laughing. I'm like, they're like an old married couple, eh? And then when she comes in heat, she's like, I love you so much. He's like, I'm gonna enjoy this while I have the time. And I don't keep males. Eddie's gonna go to, so that'd be easier for me to maintain control over the breedings too. Eddie, I think I'm gonna send him with a friend of mine. I just do not have males on my property. It's too, well, obviously, it's too hard to maintain control. And the boys, when a girl comes in heat, I mean, you can hear it for blocks and blocks. I live in the city, and you know, you hear it for blocks and blocks, the wailing and the carrying on. You'd think somebody was dying. So there's Pink, and I've placed her as an apricot, and look at her now, like she's flipping same color. Not as dark as my darkest. Some of these darks are obscenely dark red. My lightest reds will still be darker than anything else you find in the world, except for maybe one kennel that does inbreedings. Two kennels. There's two kennels that are breeding mother, son, or sister, brother. Line breeding's okay. There's a place for it for sure, but you have to know your genetics behind it. And when you're inbreeding, not even line breeding's less related, so that's half brother, half sister. Inbreeding, mother, son, daughter, father, that kind of thing, you really have to know. Not a lot of people know the lines, and the lines that they're doubling up on, dark red for sure. But they also carry blindness, wry mouth. I had hip dysplasia from the lines, and they're doubling up on that. I did an outcross breeding with that line, and I got hip dysplasia and entropy. Like, you're still going to get the odd things for sure, but breeders like myself that rely on health testing and only breed healthy dogs, we got rid of that line. It's Posidoodle, McDougall line. Now, breed away from it for sure, and then, you know, you'd be all right, but breeding in on it, ugh. Even the breeder herself, she sold the dogs and got out because there were so many health issues. So you really do have to know what you're doing when you're breeding recessive colors. Red is actually a dominant color, but it's not derived from blending any colors.